Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. We still have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal? What's going on?
As always, we have a great friend of the show, Michael Brooks. He's going to talk about the way that the Democrats are totally dropping the ball in terms of their coronavirus response. We also have Sarah Nelson on. She's the president of the Flight Attendants Union and such a powerful leader in the labor world. She's going to talk about, look, if airlines get a bailout, what can we do to make sure that workers are taken care of as well? So that's a really important conversation. But Saagar, one of the things that we're following this morning is the fact that for the first time, we now have two members of Congress who have been diagnosed with coronavirus.
Yeah, that's right. So Mario Diaz-Balart and then another congressman as well from Utah both
Ben
tested
McAdams.
positive. Ben McAdams, so they tested positive for coronavirus. Both of them. This is the troubling part: is that Mario Diaz-Balart is actually in House leadership as a whip, so he has interacted with the highest levels of congressional leadership. And the other thing is, I saw this from Politico's Jake Sherman. What we have to think about is, look, Congress, I mean, if you ever see it on TV, people are milling about, they're touching each other, they're shaking hands. The voting cards are physical, the buttons, like you put your card in, you put your card out. There's a lot of different vectors of transmission in Congress. As somebody who's been on the House floor, been in the House, in the gallery, in the places where they all come in and out back, there's a lot of doors opening, closing, elevator buttons. I mean, Congress has always been a nightmare. It's one of the things that I was trying to highlight over a week ago was that this is, of course, is that K Street lobbyists were not canceling flying their clients in for congressional meetings, despite the fact that we have coronavirus. And I very much suspect that this is the reason why, is that Congress had all of these people flying in to lobby for whatever tax cut, the derivatives markets or whatever that they wanted, having all of these meetings. They're shaking hands. They're going office to office in the cafeteria. I mean, it's a very small building. And essentially, this is the result, which is that we're seeing over and over again that people who travel a lot and meet a lot of people internationally or have, lots of incoming people from around the world and meeting those people on a daily basis are the most susceptible to getting coronavirus. That's why so many world leaders and others, because of all the international travel and glad handing.
Well, it's that, and it's also that people with power and money are the ones who are getting tested.
Oh,
So
yeah, we can't forget
they
that.
can
You're
find out whether they
100%
have
right.
it, where the rest
Yeah.
of the population is just like, I don't know, I don't feel so good, but my doctor won't give me a test, so who knows,
Right.
right?
Right.
The other thing that's significant here is obviously Congress is not full of spring chickens, right? There's a lot of elderly people who serve in Congress, in particular in the highest levels of leadership on both the Republican and Democratic side. So far, there's a rule about how they have to vote in person in both the House and the Senate. So far, neither chamber has relaxed those rules. I think they're going to have to do that in the days to come, which is another sort of unprecedented development in all of this. But Saagar, of course, we've been following the response both from the Democrat and Republican sides on coronavirus. And I have to say, so far, the Democratic side has been absurdly pathetic. I mean, the bill that passed through the House to start with, that, at first it was touted, it's going to give paid sick leave to everyone. Well, actually, no, it doesn't. It gives paid sick leave to maybe 20% of workers. Everyone the small businesses can get a hardship exemption, which I actually support. But large businesses, 500 more employees, they get exempt completely. Why? Who knows? Well, I think we know why, of course, because corporations have bought all of Congress. So that was their initial offering, right? Started there. And then you have Nancy Pelosi, resistance hero, Nancy Pelosi, who is ruling out the idea of a universal cash payment. Now, why does that matter? I mean, first of all, I believe in universal programs because that way everybody gets it, everybody shares in it, everybody's in the same boat. And you can always tax the rich people later so that they're not, in fact, really getting money from the government on net. They are obviously still paying in much more. But also right now, what matters? Speed. People are looking at their bank accounts right now. They are looking at the bills that are coming in the mail and that are coming from their account right now. And so the faster you can get checks out to people, the better. Time is of the essence. And the moment that you put in means testing, you got to fill out this paperwork and you have to prove your poverty to the federal government, you add in layers of bureaucracy and critical time is wasted. And that is why it is such it is such a travesty that she is putting her foot down in favor of delays and bureaucracy and means testing at this point.
Yeah, I mean, bureaucracy and paperwork, as you know, is an enemy of the poor. Rich people can always have the time and hire people in order to figure that stuff out. And so the easiest way to do this is, as you said, okay, if we don't want payments going to rich people, then what we do is we give them the money now, and then we just write it in the tax code and we tax it back later. It's simple. It's the simplest possible thing. And by the way, at that time, we can consider about who gets the money, et cetera, and based on recovery, if they lost their job. I mean, it's the simplest possible maneuver in order to get through this, which is that we need cash into our economy right now. And what I think it shows from Pelosi and from a lot of people in Congress, because this isn't just on the left, there are a lot of people on the right who are opposing this too, is they're not underscoring the seriousness of the time that we are in right now. There is no money moving in our economy. It's an unprecedented situation. There's nobody is spending money. Everything is shut down. We've never had this level of drop in consumer spending. I'm not sure if you're covering this in your radar, but JP Morgan put out their forecast that the economy is going to shrink by 14%. Next quarter in GDP. That's almost unprecedented situation to have a 14% contraction in a single quarter. These types of things require the highest levels of responses, trillions and trillions of dollars. It will make the financial crisis look tame if we don't do something in order to mitigate all of the money and hardship that is locked into the system. Because as you and I talk about right now, $1,000, that's only going to the debt servicers in our economy. That's going to go to student loan payments. That's going to go to the stuff that ticks on, the financial time. It's going to go to your rent. It's going to go to your landlord. It's going to go to your credit card company. What about you? I walk around. I was in my grocery store yesterday, and I'm seeing moms and dads walking around with 3 or 4 kids in the middle of the day trying to find food. By the way, there's no food on the table. I've seen some, counting out coin. I mean, it's a terrible situation for people out there right now. We need to get money into their cash, money into their pockets immediately, and then we can figure out the means test later through the tax code, which is something that the IRS and everybody is actually quite good at.
Yeah, exactly right. Dee Taylor, who's the president of Unite Here, a major union for service industry workers, told reporters yesterday he expects upwards of 90% of their members to lose their job, 90%. And they've already seen it in Seattle, which of course had one of the first and worst outbreaks. They've already seen somewhere around 80 to 90% of their members lose their jobs. And what Dee said is, look, sure, you've had the titans of industry at the table. You've had these CEOs and bank executives at the table. Maybe you should talk to some working people. Maybe you should talk to at least labor union leaders who are in touch with those working people. That's really what it comes down to, Saagar, is that Congress, by and large, especially in leadership, has been so out of touch with what the reality of day-to-day life is like for working people that they don't get, that they don't have a month. They don't have till the end of April, as the Trump administration had floated, to get these checks. They don't have time to wait for the bureaucracy to process their paperwork, to go in to beg for these benefits that every American should just get as a matter of course. And then we can figure out on the other side who pays more in taxes, et cetera. They just don't understand that. They don't get the urgency of this moment, which if we don't act immediately and with dollars and approaches that we have literally never seen before, we are truly facing a Great Depression-like situation. I don't think that's an overstatement at all. When you even have Mnuchin saying that 20% unemployment is absolutely a possibility, we've never seen anything like that in our lifetimes. We haven't seen anything like that in generations. And yet we're still nibbling around the edges and fighting over means testing and fighting over who can get paid sick leave. So far, the response has been pathetic.
It has been. And you know what? People on the show know I'm kind of excited about what's happening on the right now. But if I had to, my main criticism is what you just highlighted here. I don't want airline CEOs in the White House, fine. But you're right. We need Unite Here. We need them at the table. We need people out there who are losing 80, 90% of their membership, who come to the table and say, hey, before this, we were struggling, right? Workers in this country were struggling already before this in this economy. And now this is an economic catastrophe. And this is our one chance to right the conditions for the people who live in this country. That is how I'm looking at this. And I think we cannot allow this to just be a cash injection. Let's the economy work. Everyone keeps saying, let's get the economy working again. Well, what the real question, and I think what you and I are trying to highlight, is it wasn't working for everybody before this whole thing started out. So working again means different things to different people. To Wall Street, it just means let's go back to business. But to you and I, what we're trying to highlight is we got to bring actual workers, families, all these their representatives into the White House, into Congress right now so that they get the same benefits as Boeing or United Airlines.
And the decisions that are made right now, and I'm talking right now, this week,
literally right now,
next week, are going to reverberate for years and years, potentially decades to come. So getting it right now is absolutely critical. And so far, our leaders, unsurprisingly, are failing the test. We are going to be talking, as I mentioned, to Sarah Nelson, who is the president of the Flight Attendants Union, who has some great thoughts about how workers can be protected during this time. So I'm excited to talk to her. Saagar and I are both we're going to try to have guests like that at the table so that voices of working people are integrated into our coverage, because they are the ones who are going to be impacted, hit the hardest, and have their lives upended for the longest periods of time. And with that, we will bring you our radars. That's next.